Chioma, a 22-year-old model who just returned from the city, comes back to her village. Everyone is excited to see her, and they welcome her warmly. David, Chioma's longtime boyfriend, comes visiting. "You forgot about me, Obeem," David said with a sad look. "I didn't forget about you, Dave. I just got busy with work, but at least I'm back now. Let's leave everything that was in the past, Chioma assured him. His lips curved up into a smirk. They discussed for a while before he left. On David's way back home, he started pondering on how beautiful Chioma was. "I must eat her before any other guy in this village does. She's going to be mine," David promised himself. Chioma's return got to the ears of the prince of the village. It spread like wildfire. One afternoon, while Chioma was still in bed, the prince visited her. "Chioma!" Obianuju, Chioma's mother, called out. "Yes, Mama," Chioma answered as she hurriedly ran out of the hut. She was starstruck as she saw the prince. "Why will the prince visit me?" she thought to herself. "The prince is here to see you," Obianuju told her before leaving for the kitchen. Chioma offered the prince a seat, to which he obliged. "I heard a beautiful damsel has arrived in the village yesterday," the prince said, smiling sheepishly at her. Chioma blushed, smiling at the prince. Just as they were still discussing, David came. He hid behind the hut as he eavesdropped on their conversation. He was filled with anger and strife. "I will not let this happen. Never," he said to himself before leaving. David started visiting Chioma often after seeing her with the prince. Chioma didn't know he had a bad plan which he was drafting. "Tomorrow is my birthday, David," Chioma told David one night he visited. "Oh, really? Why don't we celebrate tomorrow?" David asked her. "Sure, but..." She trailed off, not knowing what to say next. David knew it was about the prince. "Is it about the prince?" David suddenly asked, causing Chioma to turn to him in shock. "Yes, I know about the prince coming to visit you frequently. I know he has more influence than me, but let's make things work out between us, please," David pleaded. "I also want that, David, but I'm confused at this point. The both of you have been good to me and I don't want to rush into making a bad decision. I would need time to think about it," Chioma told him, feeling sad. "It's all right. You can go out with the prince. We will see later on," David said. She hugged him tightly before they parted ways. "I have to act fast before she chooses the prince," David muttered to himself as he walked back home. The next morning, the prince came with his car and picked up Chioma. He drove her to an eatery where they ate and discussed. "Do you love me, Chioma?" the prince suddenly asked through their conversation. She kept quiet, her head bent down. He used his hand and raised her face upwards. "I might have been a bit watchful, but I kept a guard who followed you whenever I'm not around, and he told me there is a guy who always visited." "Do you love him?" the prince asked again. Chioma was nervous. "I do, my prince, but at this point I'm still confused. I don't know who to settle down with. David has been my friend since childhood, but I also love both of you," Chioma told the prince. "It's fine, dear. Just make the right decision and follow the one your heart directs you to." The prince ended the conversation with that. After that day, Chioma started thinking about what the prince told her about following her heart. Just as she was thinking about it one morning, David came in. "Welcome, David," Chioma greeted with worry all over her face. "Thank you, dear. You look sad. Are you okay?" David asked her as he placed his hand on her shoulder. "I am, just many things running through my mind," Chioma answered. "Okay, I have an idea. Why don't we go to my house and have some palm wine? I just bought some fresh ones today," David suggested. Chioma almost objected, but she knew she needed something to settle down with, and it's been a while since she visited David. "Okay." Chioma agreed and followed him to his house. David secretly goes into the kitchen and drugs the palm wine that he was going to give to Chioma. Afterwards, he proceeded back to the living room and passed the cup of palm wine to her. Kioma drank it until the cup was empty. After some minutes, she started feeling drowsy. "I want to." She trailed off as she collapsed on the floor. David quickly carried her to his room where he raped her. He went on and on for minutes until he was satisfied. Few moments after that, Kioma woke up. She felt pain in between her legs, and when she touched it, she saw blood. She stared at David, who sat on the only chair in the room, with disbelief. "What did you do, David?" She stuttered out as sweat dropped from her face. "What I should have done years ago," David said, smiling with mischief. Kioma went back home in pain and tears. She couldn't believe she let something like that happen ignorantly. It was then she saw the true character of David. Few weeks later. One morning, after their morning devotion, Kioma felt the urge to regurgitate. She quickly ran out of the house and threw up. Obianuju looked at her with suspicion. "Are you okay?" Obianuju asked her. "I'm okay, Mama," Kioma answered, about to go back into the house, but Obianuju dragged her back. "You don't look okay, Kioma. Wait." She trailed off as she stared into Kioma's eyes. "Chimo, Yugu, you're pregnant, Kioma." Obianuju was startled. "Pregnant? How?" Kioma asked. "We will confirm it at the hospital," Obianuju told her before leaving. It was then reality dawned on Kioma. She hadn't told anybody what happened that day till date. She became worried because it was a mistake. Later in the day, Obianuju and Chioma both went to the village hospital where they ran some tests on Kioma. Kioma, while awaiting the results, pondered on her future with a baby. It was something she had never thought of or imagined. She always planned on going back to the city to start up a new life. Few minutes later, the doctor came back with the results. "You're 2 weeks pregnant, Kioma," the doctor announced to both of them. Obianuju almost fainted. Hot tears rolled down Kioma's cheeks. They both went home sadly. "Why did you do such a thing?" Obianuju asked Kioma when they got back home. "I'm so sorry, Mama," Kioma pleaded in tears. "Who is the father of the child?" Obianuju threw the bomb. Kioma stuttered for minutes until she got a hold of herself. "It happened that night I visited David. He drugged my drink and had his way with me," Kioma told Obianuju in tears. "Why didn't you ever tell me about it, dear?" Obianuju inquired. "Because I was still in shock," Kioma said, weeping silently. Together, they both planned to inform the prince about the new development. As if the prince knew something was wrong, he visited Obianuju's hut the next day. "Good day, my prince," Obianuju greeted. "Good day, Mama. Where is Kioma?" the prince asked almost impatiently. Kioma slowly walked out with her head bent in shame. "What is it? Are you okay?" the prince asked her as he came closer to her, wrapping his hand around her shoulder. "I'm pregnant," Kioma said, causing a great silence in their midst. "How?" the prince inquired, looking confused. "I was drugged by—" She trailed off after realizing what will happen to David if she spoke. "By who, Kioma?" the prince asked her. "It's nothing." Kioma tried waving the topic away, but the prince was hell-bent on finding out. It was David. He drugged her and had his way with her. Obianuju threw from where she stood. Kioma looked at her with disappointment. "He raped my daughter, and you expect me not to react? You must be joking." Obianuju spat angrily before going inside the hut. Kioma was left alone with the prince, who kept silent for a while. "I will be back," the prince said as he left. Kioma noticed the anger in his voice. She knew what he was capable of. She feared for David already. The prince assigned 2 of his guards to drag David to the palace angrily. When David got to the palace, the prince in anger put him in the palace cell till further notice. Kioma was worried that the prince wasn't visiting her again, neither had she heard from him. One afternoon, she decided to visit him in the palace. "Good afternoon, my prince," she greeted him, almost prostrating with her pregnancy until the prince helped her back to her feet. "Why did you come out alone?" the prince asked her with worry all over his face. "I'm here to apologize, my prince. In the quest of choosing who my heart wants to be with, I ended up pregnant. I'm so sorry, my prince." Kioma apologized, weeping profusely. "It's okay, Kioma. The child is ours, okay? I haven't left you either. I'm still here for you. I just wanted to give you time to clear things off, and as for that man, he's behind bars now," the prince assured her. "Thank you, my prince." Kioma thanked him before leaving. After that day, the prince started visiting Kioma at her hut until she gave birth to a baby girl. "We will name her Favor," the king announced to everyone. Kioma became a princess and they lived happily ever after.